One is the damage to this thread in the fitting. This was where the high pressure pipe went into it, and you can see there that they've rounded off the thread, which made it very difficult to come out. So we're going to change this whole fitting when we put it back on. The other thing to take note of is this pin. This pin is seized up tight. So what that means is that the pin has been riding on the bracket that supports it rather than on this bearing surface where it should be. I'm going to try and tap it out, see if it's going to come out. It's somewhat tight, so I think I'll leave that until we've taken the master cylinders off the linkage. What we're going to do is we'll take the rubbers and we'll send them back up the shaft like so. Take a pair of pliers and we'll go on that clip there. We'll squeeze the clip, take that off, and then we'll carefully pull that master cylinder out. Now you can see the piston in there just beginning to come out. We'll put that to one side. Take our screwdriver, we'll ease this rubber back. You can see those clips there. Take our pliers, squeeze that. Oops. Saw the piston shoot out of there. So we'll slip our clips off there. Take our clip off there. Now what we need to do is look at this. This pin floats in there. There's a grease fitting, and there's a row of needle rollers there and there. If everything was moving okay in here, which it is, you don't need to worry about that too much. We're not going to bother. We still have our concern with this pin. What we're going to do is we're going to bang that right out and we'll wash it, and then I'll clean that pin up, and I'll show you that when we're fitting the...
Okay, working on the center pivot here. Your pin will go through this way. This will be towards the front of the car, is this direction. You'll see I have all the bearings inside this one. I put quite a bit of grease, and I use this synthetic grease, this SIG 3000. Put a heavy layer of that, then you can place these in one at a time. There's a spacer, there's an O-ring on the outside. Okay, we got it together. You notice we have the large on the top for the 1-inch master cylinder, and we got the smaller one on the bottom. Driving it through, there is a screw head on here which you can twist as you push it through, and make sure you have the bearings lined up, because if they're not, it should slide through fairly easily. But if it locks up, one of those bearings inside is most likely not lined up, but you can get through at them at the ends.
The master cylinder back up. Another thing you need to know about, you can see the color of that fluid is pretty bad. It's just as well we're doing it. You can see down in that cylinder it's beginning to pick up, and it's not far short of leaking, I'm sure. And we'll empty the fluid out. Now what a lot of people do with these is they take these two areas and they put them in the vise. Then they take a wrench and they try and undo this. This cap is steel and the housing is aluminum, and the steel grows inside the aluminum. And one of the tricks that you need to know about this is that if you take a hammer you do that, you can undo that just by hand, and you haven't broken the cylinder and you haven't done any damage. There's the spreader for the seal. The seal's in there. And just below there is a valve. And what that valve's designed to do is to stop the seal banging down hard, going into the holes in the cylinder and then jamming off so that the fluid can't get in there. So we'll just slip that out and I'll show you the holes. You can see the holes in the bottom, and that valve, you can see the indents, stops the seal from being forced into those holes. And that's important that that goes back in. Take the small cylinder, pull that out of there. You can see the colour of that fluid. And you can see there's not any sleeve in there. So I'm going to take this one. I grip it firmly, like so. I'll just show you that it's not loose in the beginning. You can undo that. Again, you've got the spreader and the seal. You can see the muck and the dirt. It was time to do them. Although I don't think they're particularly old. We'll give the system a good clean out. We'll work away on this valve, get it out of there. But we'll make a decision as to whether we're going to put new or re-sleeved master cylinders on there. And we'll do that on the fit up. Now we're going to wash everything up and get it ready to put everything in the seals that you get inside a master cylinder kit. You can see there that there's a T-shaped, if you like, seal and a more like a cover type seal. And then inside the master cylinders you could get two different pistons. You can have a piston with a flange inside there, or you can have a piston with just a straight opening. If you've got the piston with the straight opening, which is the old seal I took off, is the T-shaped one. But this one gives you the option to take it open. You can see there's a spring clip there, and I just pulled that straight out of that piston there. So this seal would be used in there. You'd put that on there, and then you'd just push that back in like so. But this, the one that we're working on today, is this piston. But I'm just demonstrating the differences that you'll find. Just take a bit of grease, spread it around the inside of the seal, push it over. You could see that the other one was much easier to put on, but this is the way it is. Okay, so we've got that T-shaped seal on that piston now. Put that to one side. We're dealing with this size, which is the small master cylinder. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the valve, or the washer, the steel washer with the pressings on it, or the little lumps on it. We're going to drop that inside the master cylinder. You can see that that's just sitting down there on blocking the holes. You can see that it doesn't block the holes, it allows the holes for the fluid to transfer through the holes. So we just put that in there, nothing special. Then we take the seal. This is the main seal. This is the seal that when the pressure that the servo puts on the piston, this is what provides the seal and forces the pressure to the brakes. Now you can see how it has a cut or a shape in it there, and it's flat there. Well, the flat goes down to the steel washer, and you're just going to push it down, take a screwdriver, and you just push the thing all the way home, like so. And this is the end cover. You can see there's a seal, an O-ring on the end there, and we're just going to, that's the old one, we're going to slip that off and discard that. Take the new one, we'll slide that. Actually, it's better if we put this washer on first. In the kits, they don't provide this washer anymore, so I'm afraid you're on your own. I haven't been able to find a number with the right size washer, and I tend to use the same one. The O-ring is actually the seal, the washer is just the cushion for the end cap to go on over. So make sure the washer's on, then push the O-ring on. You can put a little bit more rubber grease just to, as it goes in, it gives it something to slide on so that it doesn't grip it and then perhaps mark it. So that's ready. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take our piston and we're going to push it up the end of the cylinder. Of course, it's the small end. I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on there. One of the problems when you're bleeding these brakes is this piston might have a tendency to stick in the seal. So you want to get a fair amount of thing. You can see how I pushed that in there, just boom. You have a choice at this point. It's probably better just to slip the clip in now. And why we're going to do that, and you'll see in a moment, is it keeps the piston in there while we're assembling the other end. You can see that's gone into the groove. So now you can see in there, you can see the piston sticking through the seal. It's imperative that we keep the piston through the seal while we're putting it in, because we have this expander. This expander is going to go on there, and that holds the seal not firmly against the seat because it has to move, but it does keep its shape, and it does allow it to move and still keep it there. So this is important that the piston stays in, because if we tighten the end cap and the piston isn't in there, it's going to distort that rubber seal, and then we're not going to be able to get the piston in. So I take a socket, just take a small socket, and I push it up inside there, like so, which keeps the piston through. So we're going to drop the spring in, and then our seal retainer, if you like, hold it there. Then we're going to push it all down inside, like so. Now you can see the piston has come right back to the clip, and that was the reason for putting the clip there, because otherwise the piston would have popped out. So I'm just going to tighten the end cap with a wrench, pull it round. Of course, the O-ring makes the seal, so all we're doing is tightening it so it can't fall out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it to the side, and I'm going to prime the cylinder. And the reason for this is, if we don't prime it, when we get it on the car, we might have an awful time bleeding it. But by running some fluid through it now, it can save a lot of problems once it's on the car. So what we're going to do is just carefully squirt a little bit of fluid right inside either hole. It doesn't matter. All you're trying to do is get the air out and get the fluid in. You can see the bubbles popping out of there as the fluid goes down on that one. We'll just carry on with this till we get the thing to the point that there's no more room for fluid. Okay, we're going to do the big master cylinder. As you know, there's two sizes, and we're going to do the large. It's exactly the same as the other one. Again, they offer us two different seals. We're going to use the one that's in there, that one. You can see that. And we're just going to hook it off like so. I'm going to take the new one, take a little rubber grease, slide it around, make it a little easier. And we're just going to push that on over there, like so. Put that to one side. Take our master cylinder and our valve, and we're just going to drop that in over there, flat. Then we're going to take our seal, put that well down inside again, push it down. Take a bit of grease for that piston. Have far less trouble with the large piston master cylinder. It's much easier for some reason, the other one. And we're just going to stick that through. I'm going to show you, just push that right in, no problem. Put our clip in. Take the two ears, needle nose pliers. Clip that in. Same socket, put that up inside. Just enough to hold it through. Then we're going to put our spring in. Take our seal holder, put that in. I'm going to slip the O-ring off. New O-ring on. Put a bit of grease on that. Send that all the way home. No problem. Take our socket out. You can see piston goes in and out. It's not jammed or anything, everything's cool. And we'll put it in our vise. Tighten the end on. Then we're just going to prime that, and then we'll mount it onto the linkage, and that'll be the master cylinders ready to go on the car when we've got them on the linkage. Just get rid of the air. When we took the master cylinders, I demonstrated that this pin had seized up in this piece of linkage, so this time we're going to free it up. So I'm going to just ease it into the vise, nothing too tight, just to support us. And I'm going to just knock the pin out of there. I'm just going to so you can see quite clearly that that was seized up. Well, that's not a good thing. Do that. Take some of the emery cloth. When you think you've got the pin clean enough, we can try it in the hole. We seem to have nothing seized there now. Put that in there. I'll spread it around a bit. I think we've solved that problem. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the boots off this bit of linkage here. And we're going to change these boots. They're not in bad shape, but we've got new ones here, so we may as well change them. We're going to take the screwdriver, try not to put it through our hand, like that. We're just going to ease it off there. It's better if they're older and more rotten, because then they come off easily. But just pull it off the washer, like so, that one. Ease it around. There. So they're off. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to spread this a bit, like so, and push it on there. Might just have a little bit of lubrication to help us. You see what I did there, I pushed it through, kept the whole thing together, so I didn't have to fight every washer. And now I'm going to push the outside piece out. I've got to now put this lip into that groove, so do that. You can see that. I'm going to now roll it back on itself so that when I take the clip out to put this rod in there, it's going to be easy. So I roll that back like so. That gives me some space to work. I have to take this because it has to be on there as well. Roll that around. Do the same with this end. I'm going to take the master cylinder, turn it up on end, take the linkage. We've got to be a little bit of a trick shot here, because we have to take the clip out without totally losing the piston, push the rod in, like so, put the clip back in, you can see our fluid's coming out, but that doesn't matter if we'll put some more in if we think it's necessary. And you can see that that clip's right in there holding that washer. So we're going to do the small one. And you heard that clip go in. Click is in and clip is in the groove. The washer's there. This one's in good shape still. So we'll lay that down like so. Then we're going to take our boot there's the master cylinder and they're ready to go on. First thing we're going to do is put the support or the shaft for the linkage of the brake master cylinders through the hole. This is the one we freed up and we're going to push it right into the hole like so. You see that comes through there. This is held on with the fork. I'm going to put the fork up and start the bolt like so. Once we've done that, I'm going to lift up the top master cylinder and I'm going to pick up the pipe, the high pressure pipe, and put that into the fitting. I'm going to wiggle the master cylinder and wiggle the fitting until we get a nice contact like so. Now I'm going to screw that in as far as I possibly can with my fingers because there is no distance that you can turn a wrench. With the fitting in the top master cylinder, we're going to lift the bottom one up and we're going to put the fitting into that one. Everything's loose still. We're not putting any bolts in until we get these fittings started and as tight as we can with our fingers. This is the most difficult part of this job because you've got to get everything straight in. We're going to put this plate up. I'm going to hang the grease nipple slot onto the grease nipple. This is the bolt with the support for the handbrake linkage. That's going to go through the plate. Then we're going to put the spacer. We're going through the other side of the bracket and we're going to use a washer and a half nut. That's what I'm going to do now. That gets everything supported. I'm now going to lift up the master cylinder bracket. I have to align the shaft with the linkage. Like so. Then I'll nip up the bolt somewhat. Next thing I'm going to do is put a bolt through the back end of this bracket, like so, keep the whole thing together. Put a flat washer on the inside. Saw the shaft come through there, got a bolt, we've got the nipple through. Now we go on to the other side of the other end of the bracket. Bolt in there. Everything's left loose, we don't do anything up tight until such time as everything is in, because if you do anything up tight you're not going to be able to align everything. So we're going to put our long bolts now through the top master cylinder. pull this bit of linkage down, the rear compensate linkage. I'll wiggle the master cylinder around a bit, like so. Got that one through. Put the last master cylinder bolt in. Through, like so there. Once we've got all the bolts in, you can then start to tighten all the nuts up. You wouldn't think a 1/2 inch bolt could be so long, would you? Now we're going to put this piece of linkage back in there. We're going to put our 1/4 bolt in there. We're now ready to tighten up the fittings. Make sure they're good and tight and fit the feed hoses to the master cylinders. We're going to tighten up the fork that we put in first, and that will complete the master cylinders. Okay, slip the feed pipes onto the fittings. These are the pipes from the reservoirs. And then we'll just clamp those up with the Jubilee clips. I use a 1/4 drive socket to do this. The good thing about the hex on the hose clamp makes life a lot easier, especially in these tight quarters. One thing when you're using the socket, you've got to be careful not to over tighten the clip. So that's that. Okay, you'll need to put the master cylinder return spring on, like that, on that bar. That's all that's bar's for, and that is there. That completes the installation of the master cylinders into the chassis. When we put the servo on, we'll put the rest of the linkage on. When you're ready to fit the servo, carefully lift it up through the chassis so that you don't damage that spring cover. You're going to lift it on, line up the holes and the plate like so. Then we're going to turn the 2 nuts at the end to line up the inner plate. The servo's up, so I'm going to push the levers up out of the way, give me more room, and I'm going to tighten this bolt here, all the time keeping the servo in. I check to make sure my servo's still locked on the pins. I'm keeping pressure with my 2 fingers there to make sure it doesn't fall out, and I tighten the bolt in. Once I'm sure that everything's in, you can hear that clunk. I know that it's in, still holding it in. I tighten the centre bolt. It is going to take you a fair amount of time to wind all that thread in. You tighten that up really quite tight. Just as an added check, we can bring it down, and we can see that floats on those pins beautifully. Okay, we're going to join up the linkage, the operating linkage at the top. That pin is in. You can see that's on there. We put that through there. Do a little bit of wiggling. Got our 2 pins in, and we're ready to put our horseshoes on. Put our clip in there. Okay, we'll put the piece of linkage, the pin and the horseshoe from the compensator rod. We'll tighten that up. Okay, tightening up the brake pedal rod. Those two are now tight. We'll now put the servo actuating rods on. Do that, we'll bring the servo around there and we'll run the rods through. The first rod we'll put on is the reverse rod. Remember, I took this off with the screw. You can bring it right down, though it doesn't come this far down in its natural travel. Put that in there. We'll tighten up the two bolts into the reverse linkage. Then we'll bring the servo round like so to make sure that the rods are on the right side. That is, this lever here is closest to the servo, so it has to go on the inside of the other rod. So, let's put our pin in there. Net that up. We're now ready to join the rods up to the master cylinder, which we'll do now. Okay, when we fit the bushings for the master cylinder end of the rod, we have to decide which side gets the short spacer and which side gets the long. Because this rod is closest to the centre of the engine, it gets the short one there, like so. We can put that into the arm. We line up the bolt, put that through. Put our washer on. And our nut. Just start it, we're not going to tighten it up yet because we need to spread this just a little bit for our hole. We're going to put the long bushing on this side and the short bushing on there. Wiggle that through, put our nut and washer on. Now we have both our bolts tight, we're ready to do our on-stop adjustment. Put the on-stop through on top of the chassis. Have to put a couple of bolts into it. So you need to adjust the on-stop so that it's close enough to the arm at this point here, so that if this piece of linkage was to break, that the servo would activate. But you don't want it too far away so that it wouldn't activate at all. So we'll leave that about there. So we tighten up the on-stop, and that's correctly adjusted. Bring the handbrake cable through the chassis and join it onto the linkage. Okay, put the clevis pin through, put the split pin or cotter pin in, bend that around. Join the front end of the pedal return spring onto the pedal and join the other end of the spring to the on-stop. The servo, we turn the prop shaft and we watch the two lock nuts turn at the end of the servo shaft. Now we'll loosen the lock nut on the servo shaft. So that's loose, and we'll tighten up the inner nut, turning the prop shaft to see if the servo turns. Keep tightening it up until the servo begins to turn. You can see there the servo is just beginning to pick up. You can see the rods take up the slack, so we'll go up just a little more to prove the point. You see the servo is now turning. You can see the arms are activating. So what we're going to do is we are going to let off the inner nut 2 flats. We're going to go 1, and then we'll do it another flat, like so. The servo is now free, it's not tied up, and we'll bring the outer nut in to meet the inner nut that we've adjusted with. You just see that movement there. So we hold that nut, we'll take it back, that, and we lock the two nuts, not letting the inner one move. That's the correct adjustment for the servo. You can see the nuts are turning and everything is free. So we're happy with that.